Okay, welcome to the second lecture that we're going to be doing. It's lecture number 6, and it's Mande worlds in the upper Niger. So the area we're talking about is in the box on Africa there. It's modern Mali and Niger, parts of Ghana, and Burkina Faso. So this is the area that we saw in the movie Mande. There was urban life there by about the 1st century BC. And we can see that there had been a previous very large empire, the Ouagadougou Empire in Ghana, Mande in Mali from the 9th to 16th century. So the Mali Empire is very famous because of the city of Timbuktu. Travelers that came through the Sahara Desert would encounter Timbuktu first. So there are many Islamic groups. Non-Islamic groups include the Bamana, and that's what we're going to be talking about at the end. But we'll start with Islamic Junaid and the Great Mosque that they have there. If you remember, we saw a Great Mosque in Kairouan before. And this mosque should look familiar to you since it's almost exactly the same type of design that we saw in Mande and Burkina Faso. So Africans would blend Islamic thought and architecture with their own. And again, we saw that in Mande, and we'll see some parallels with the Great Mosque in Junaid. So as is often the case with mosques are the center of town. So you can see that there's a bazaar next to the mosque, and often schools and even hospitals will be near it. So also remember that the plan of the mosque is based on Muhammad's home. Obviously, Muhammad didn't have a house quite like this, but the general structure is based on Muhammad's home, regardless of the style that is used. So in this, we can see that it's made from mud brick, exactly as we saw in Mande again. And those stakes, although they add an aesthetic value, the stakes are used to be able to maintain the building. When you make something out of mud brick, which is also known as adobe, it's really great for dry areas like in Mali and Junaid. But you need to be able to maintain the surface. So that can be used to climb up and to add more clay to the mud brick structure. So you may notice that, like what we saw in Mande, there's ostrich eggs at the top of the spires in the facade of the mosque. So that has some meaning, and I'm going to read from Vasona. The pinnacle of each square tower of the Qibla wall is set with an ostrich egg. Eggs were similarly placed on the minaret of the mosque at Chingeri. In Junaid, in both Mande, that's the peoples we're talking about, and Muslim philosophers see this white moon-like object as linked to fertility in the cosmos. And we saw a similar explanation in Mande from Ibrahima. So on the left, there's a picture. It's a cover of a really good photography book by Robert Hirsch. And the picture is by the African-American artist named Carrie Mae Weems. And it's part of her The Shape of Things. The title is Shape of Things, and it's part of her The African series. And you can see that it represents the type of local architecture that people use. So Junaid, the Great Mosque of Junaid, and local architecture have similar forms. And the forms are almost certainly pre-Islamic. So some of these forms and houses have very specific meanings, where they take a spiritual meaning to the structure of the family. So I'll read from Vasona again. The names reveal an interest in identifying architectural elements with the family. The doorway is the mouth of the house, Me, and the archway of the mouth, Gamhu, surrounds it. The two centrally engaged columns are the feminine pillars, Sarafar Way, possibly in opposition to the obvious phallic projections of the framing columns at the corner, Sarafar Har. The 5 central cones are the sons of the pillars, Sarafar Ide. So this type of structure shows that they kind of literally in 3 dimensions take symbols of the family structure and put it into it. So you can imagine that this type of spiritual relationship between the family structure and architecture also made its way into the Great Mosque of Djenné. You may notice also that the architecture is similar to Mas that they would have in Mali from the Dogon people in this example. And you should be able to recognize those Mas because a very similar style of Mas, again, was used in Mulade, where the Salandana had approached the Mulade barrier, and the children who were afraid of them imagined them in these particular masks. So moving on to non-Islamic societies, these are Chiwara dancers performing during the agricultural cycle in the Bamako area in Mali. So the Bamana, like a lot of other cultures that we study, have many different initiation rituals with varying levels of secrecy. So the Chiwara society, the idea with it was to prepare men for marriage, fatherhood, and farming. So it's basically to train men how to be men in Bamana society. And kind of like the old school, I'm sure you all didn't have it, but home ec classes, young men would be paired with young women, and they would basically practice what it is to be an adult and all of their responsibilities according to their gender roles. So agricultural fertility is attributed to a union between the sun, an expression of the male principle, and the earth and water, an expression of the female principle. So whenever you see these dancers that are pictured here, one of the Chiwara masks, which are on top of their heads, represents a feminine kind of creature, and I'll talk about that in a moment, and one represents a masculine form. So pause the video for a second and see if you can guess which one is the masculine form and which one is the feminine form. And you can even, put your guess up on the extra credit board if you want. So take that time. So now I'll tell you which one it is. It is the one on the left is the masculine form, and the one on the right is the feminine form. And you can tell because the feminine form has a baby form that is on the back. So if you look kind of closely here, there's a feminine form here overall, and then we have that little baby form. So that's how you know that it is the feminine form. Both of the dancers, as it appears, though, are men. And that's the way it's normally done in West Africa. We're going to see one exception a little bit later on with the Mande people, but this is not one of those exceptions. You'll notice how the dancers are bent down and they have these sticks. So in what it represents is the Chiwara, who is a primordial being, a kind of wild beast. But this wild beast was the first farmer and taught men how to farm. So two young men take the roles, a Chiwara and his female consort. And again, the one on the right is the female consort. So the dancers bend because good farmers are expected to bend over and hoe the ground. But also the sticks represent the front legs of an antelope, the way that it bends its neck, which may be, because of this behavior, may be why they associate it with farming. And the horns, which are the horns of an antelope, they also represent millet stalks. So if you don't remember, a millet is a type of grain that's usually used in bird seed in the United States. But in other countries, it's actually used to eat. It's quite good. So they dance to drummers. I don't have a video of this particular one, but I'll be able to show you videos when we see other masquerades a little bit later on. So Chiwara associations rarely make the masks anymore. And there is probably still beliefs that are associated with farming in Chiwara, but they don't have the same spiritual significance. They're still produced for the theater, for hoeing contests, because I guess that's what farmers do. They have hoeing contests, but it's really lost its religious meaning through time. To give you an example of the different styles, examples of the different styles of Chiwara masks, this one is a horizontal style example, so a little different than the ones we've seen so far. And we see that it's sort of a canine type of animal. And I don't think you have to look too closely to figure out that this is one of the male figures. It's quite obvious. If we get in a little bit closer, we can see that there's patterns on it. And these patterns may have specific meanings and specific spiritual powers for the people who commission the mask. But most of those meanings, or all of them as far as we know, have been lost through time. Again, as we talked about before, these societies sometimes may see certain types of imagery and patterns and words to be something that would be hidden from everybody else. So it would be a secret type of information. So this style is known as the abstract style. You can see that we have the curved antelope horns, fragments of horns that are kind of poking out everywhere, and anteater snouts. So because they root in the earth, if you go to the Detroit Zoo, you can see that. And it's sort of an anteater, but also kind of canine-like animal. And then the last style, which is the most popular style that you see with collectors, one of the most popular styles is the vertical style. And we can see a more unified type of image coming up, a more iconographic type of image. We can still see the antelope, but everything is very stylized. And because of the way that the lines are used, we get this kind of unified type of image where we can instantly recall it and draw it with just a few lines. That's the end. Thank you very much.